Reviews are in. They say it's shaping up to be the most not Fire Emblem game ever made. After 14 years, Nintendo might finally break the Fire Emblem curse with Fortune's Weave. Fire Emblem, the Blazing Blade was so good that I spent the next 20 years buying every game in the series, hoping one of them would reach those same heights again.
Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave is shaping up to be a success the likes of which that nobody saw coming. Like, Three Houses was kind of an unprecedented success story for the franchise to begin with. But after Engage, there was this really big, genuine feeling among the community that maybe this was it. Maybe the series was falling off. Maybe the golden age was over. Maybe the post awakening boom would just collapse and the series would become irrelevant again. And not only was that not true, the series is bigger now than I think it ever has been before. In fact, to the point where I would say we're at the point where we can reasonably expect Fire Emblem games to be major driving forces in the hardcore gaming space to get people invested in Nintendo hardware, because there's no getting around how big these games are. There's no getting around how popular they are. There's no getting around the fact that they are games that cannot be found anywhere else, and that they will drive people to pick up these consoles. The entire cope that Fire Emblem or Nintendo doesn't put out big, major, real games on their console. It seems like this has become a trend now, where Fire Emblem is the video game franchise that puts an end to all of that. And yet we're still in this weird phase where you still have a lot of these people, these fake fans, coming out and making all these statements. Usually by claiming that they're huge fans of older games in the series. Usually Fire Emblem 7, but I've seen people go up as far as like Radiant Dawn to try and like classify them as like real Fire Emblem games that I guess like Fire Emblem immediately fell off after Awakening, which conveniently is the entry where this franchise became a system seller. Like, this really needs to stop, is just my mindset going into this, because I was ecstatic about Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave like from the moment we saw it, and yet we had to go through this weird process where every YouTuber was coming out and just complaining about this game when it was first unveiled. Like, we had a lot of people saying it was going to be disappointing. We had a lot of people saying they were bored of Fire Emblem. You were seeing a lot of people saying that they were fans of old Fire Emblem but hated what the series became, as if, like, there was no hope for recovery. Like, I didn't like Fire Emblem Fates either, right? But realistically, I knew immediately, intuitively, that we would never again get a game like it, right? Like, because, like, the company is always taking radical new steps to change the game, to like make it completely different with each iteration. So Fates was never going to happen again, okay? And after that, I got Shadows of Valentia, which I loved. I got Three Houses, which I loved. I got like, Engage, which I loved, and now we're getting Fortune's Weave, right? Like, again, the entire like idea, the entire narrative, right? That certain people will never ever try Fire Emblem no matter what, and that like old school fans will never ever get a Fire Emblem game that they like. Both of those ideas, both of those concepts make fundamentally no sense. Like, you really think that people aren't going to eventually like get into Fire Emblem and try it, okay? You really think that people are going to be put off by the anime aesthetics in an era where like anime is super popular? You think people are going to be put off by the strategy gameplay? You think people are going to be put off by the story or the tone or like the setting or the gameplay? And that's just very observably not true. Okay, like, I'm so sick of going through this song and dance where we're supposed to believe that Fire Emblem is not a real Nintendo game because it didn't launch on the N64 in the US or whatever. I don't understand why we have to keep going through this song and dance every time, where we have to act as if Fire Emblem is this franchise that's like inherently niche with no real hope of becoming mainstream, when in reality it became, not only became mainstream a long time ago, it's actually the peak of the genre. This is the most popular strategy RPG in the world right now. And I know like the masses keep doing this thing where they try and say that like Total War is more popular or that StarCraft is more popular or whatever, but you're branching out into like other strategy RPG territory, right? When it comes to like actual pure strategy RPGs, Fire Emblem is by far the most popular and successful. And the fact that anybody who tries to dispute this has to like try and talk about like Shining Force and um, Final Fantasy Tactics. That just goes to show just how desperate they are to push their narrative. Essentially, like what Final Fantasy Tactics game have you played in the past 20 years? I know, like you look at just the history of Fire Emblem and just what they've been doing lately, and they've done a really, really good job at introducing this franchise to Western audiences, doing more to expand the setting and the world, and doing more to like grow the franchise, and all the attempts by like the Nintendo YouTubers to downplay this series have ended in complete failure. Like the entire idea that this was a bad way to end that last Nintendo Direct was laughably stupid and off base, right? Like the idea that this was something that was never going to live up to expectations and wasn't going to sell Switch 2s, and that was overpriced. Like all of that has completely collapsed. I would not be surprised if this turns into like one of the biggest success stories for Nintendo this year. Right up there with Pokopia and with Donkey Kong Bonanza last year. Like this is going to be a huge monumental hit. And I really have to question people who constantly do this thing where they come out, claim to be huge Fire Emblem fans, huge fans of Nintendo, and yet have no interest in this franchise or specific release at all. Like, I really have to question your motives. I really have to question, like, why you feel this way. Because whenever I see people complain about these games, like, they inevitably do this thing where they're just like, oh, Fire Emblem isn't what it used to be, or it's all about the romance now. And meanwhile, you can, like, look at, like, Fortune's Weave, and you can look at Engage, too. And they don't really have romance in them, Like Three Houses also did not have a big emphasis on romance. Like the romance thing is like a meme from the Awakening days that doesn't really have any bearing on like the current state of the franchise. In fact, when Awakening came out, there was this mindset that like the game didn't take itself seriously enough, and that it was like trite or cliche or whatever. And when Three Houses came out and was way, 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 way darker, like, did these people, like, backtrack it and try and, like, take it back or acknowledge the series had grown or evolved? No, Like, instead, they tried to do this thing where they tried to say that Three Houses was too much like Persona and that, like, it completely lost sight of what FE is, when in reality, it kind of, like, advanced the formula. Because Three Houses objectively does do the most with its characters and its setting than any other FE in history. Like, and again, like the idea that people have that the series lost something over time just doesn't hold up under any kind of scrutiny. Like, do these people really think that like younger players can't go back to classic like FE7 or Path of Radiance and realize that like newer games do a lot more? That these games weren't nearly like as sophisticated, that they don't have as much going on, that there are plenty of things to like about them. Sure, they are classics for a reason, but like at the same time, there's a reason why modern FE popped off while classic FE was like somewhat niche. And again, they hit a formula. They understand what they're doing. They're like killing it right now. And I'm very tired of going through this song and dance every release cycle where we have to like kind of legitimize the new Fire Emblem game. I'm tired of going through this process every single generation when it comes to like seeing this franchise get a release, get some kind of announcement, and seeing everybody like bend over backwards to try and pretend it's not a big deal. Okay, like this has been going on for like over a decade, and I really want this to be the last time this is an issue. Okay, Fire Emblem is an A-list Nintendo IP. Full stop. I don't want to see you complaining anymore. This is something that we really do need to push going forward. It's something we need to address. It's something we need to bring up. Like, this is a very real problem in the community, and it needs to be a major talking point going forward. I don't take people seriously when they are skeptical about these games, their success, and their quality.